you can really quickly walk away from deals. So there's deals where I get policies in, or even a first meeting, and I know, like, based on the carrier they're with, or how they talk, or what comes up in conversation, like, okay, this isn't going anywhere. Ultimately, it's about saving yourself time and not chasing after people that don't really need help.
Micah, how are you this morning?
I am ready to start this second week of June. Hard to believe. Father's Day.
Yeah.
Coming up.
Time started flying by when I had kids, and then it really started flying by when I had kids and became a producer. It's like you sneeze and 30 days go by.
Dude, that's funny because I think this pertains to a lot of business segments, but I remember getting out of college and I had a job, like my first stable kind of job. We were selling manufactured goods, right, for retailers. And so they were always buying, like in the summer, we were doing trade shows selling product for the winter. And, and then winter you're selling for the summer, and just like, so you're always thinking 4 to 6 months ahead.
Oh, yeah.
It was kind of good training for being in insurance, if you do insurance right and you're not just trying to go out there and throw stuff against the wall and quote 30 days out. But if you're actually working out ahead, it is crazy how fast. And it does create like a sense of urgency in you too, because you're always thinking like, oh, yeah, I have 6 months left, but I really have one, even though things will pop up and, it is never as bad as we kind of make it out to be in our head. But
well, great segue there on the quoting, because today we are giving you the ultimate guide to using quoting strategically without getting stuck in the vendor trap.
That's heresy.
I know. But before we do that, shout out to our friends over at Insurance Xdate. Yes, they sponsored this podcast, but long before they ever sponsored this podcast, we were hardcore advocates. We've been shouting them from the rooftops from day one. Love their product. We both use it every day. Can't say enough good things about it. Insurance Xdate. If you are in one of the states where they have the data and you're not using it, then you're missing out. So highly recommend. Link in the show notes. Go check it out. Insurance Xdate. Find more leads, win more business, or something like that. I don't remember the tag.
Pour gas on your book.
Pour gas on your book. Okay, let's get into it. The ultimate guide to strategically quoting. We've gone back and forth, or not back. We haven't gone back and forth. I would say we've changed over time. When we first started this podcast 2.5 years ago, you were a very fierce advocate of BOR-only. And of course, I just followed whatever you said, because if you say up, I say up. I'll just follow like a little baby duck. I just follow you. And then over time, I think as you became a little bit less dogmatic about it, and also being more strategic about quoting, you also went from writing like 100 to 150 a year to like $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year, just because you're picking your spots in a much better way. So I guess, what does that look like? Like, what is the problem with BOR only? And what is the problem with blindly quoting? And like, we're trying to find the thing somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. So here's the thing. There's not a problem with BOR only if that's what you want to do, because I did it. It works. It's just you leave a lot of money on the table. So that is a reality of what will happen. Now, you could argue, yeah, but I'll have so much more free time, which is true. And then it'll free me up to work on deals that are serious, right? But it all comes down to getting opportunities. Getting your foot in the door is the hardest part of this job, right? So if you getting your foot in the door and you're having to walk away from opportunities, that sucks. And now walking away from opportunities is also a good thing. You got to be disciplined, so you got to know how to pick your spots. But it's so hard to get an opportunity and then to walk away just because someone can't meet you where you're at and see you eye to eye on how to hire you. I just think, again, you're just leaving money on the table. So that's my biggest thing with the BOR only, is that, and some just real life logistical problems is they might be with a carrier you can't access, right? And so then you have to quote, obviously. That's the biggest one.
But when is it a good time to quote? What do you like?
For me personally, it's, first of all, it's after I run my process of firstly being totally clear with the prospect client. This is how the game works. This is why people use one agent. So I'm clear with that. And then they agree to do the due diligence. I run through the due diligence process, but they can't come around to doing things or hiring me, right? They can't come around to just making that change without seeing something tangible, more than just due diligence. And if I feel that the person is legit, they're a good person, they're someone I want to work with. Also, if they have true pain, right? Like I see there's some pain there, but they just, for some whatever reason, they're loyal. They can't fire their person. They need something tangible. And if I know we can win, right? That's the thing. If you do the due diligence, you know when to walk away after doing that or not, because I've done several times where I do due diligence. They're totally happy with their broker. Yeah, they're a cool person. I'd love to work with them, but there's really no pain. And they're priced extremely well. They have zero issues on the coverage side. So it's like, what am I going to sell here? I could sell, I can position you better to underwriters. And I was thinking about this last week, where I was like, I don't know, is that, to me, that's a little bit disingenuous. Or you could really flirt with kind of like walking a fine line with saying something that's kind of like BS. Like, yeah, and I get it. The client has to make a decision, and maybe you don't want to walk away from deals. So you're going to sell like hardcore, like I'm going to position you better. Here's how. I'm going to show a subcontractor agreement. I'm going to help you meet the underwriter. I'm going to do this and that. Is your agent doing all this stuff? The thing is, their agent probably is providing a lot of the documentation. They just don't know it, the client, right? And so you can say, hey, shame on that agent for not being more transparent or like making sure their client knows what they're doing every year. But again, to me, it's like, I don't know where I'm going with that. Other than to say is, I walk away or I quote when I have those boxes checked. Like the person, they're a good person. There is some pain, and I know we can win. That's when I quote. And they just can't come around to see my way of doing things.
Before we hopped on the call, we were spitballing some stuff and wrote some stuff down here, and it said a good rule of thumb: quote when quoting gets you closer to control. So, for instance, like number one, is the incumbent vulnerable? If they've made a mistake, drop something they shouldn't have, or like late renewals, that's a good time. Two, if the prospect has expressed real pain, like if they just say we're shopping, it's probably not enough. But like we've had a claim denied, or we had an audit issue, or a current guy, we can't get him on the phone, it's probably a good one to go with. Number three, if the quoting process will give you more insight into the account.
That one's kind of interesting. Here's the thing. You don't want to quote just to get insight into an account. How I would riff off of that, though, specifically is I did win a deal recently where, and I've talked about this before, I quoted just the auto because it was way out of whack on price. And then that allowed me to AR the rest of the account. I don't go that route typically. It's just that's where there's nuance to this thing, right? And so I did leverage quoting on one specific policy and then AR the rest.
Yep. It's like we've talked about in the past. It doesn't matter. Like I'd love just everything to be a BOR too, but some clients just can't mentally get themselves there. And so if you still have another way to win, why just shoot yourself in the foot and not do it? You know what I mean?
That's the biggest one for me and that's what I've just seen in my own book, right? There's been several deals I've won these last 3.5 years that have been that way.
Back to the list here. Number 4, you need to have a plan to control the narrative after proposal. So if you're just handing over numbers, not a good idea. But if you present, explain, and attach your value along with your proposal, what are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, you don't want to be a quote. That's the thing, guys. So a lot of the people in the BOR camp are like, hey, save your time. And you used to say this. You're like, if I was a new manager, I wouldn't even allow my agents to quote. I remember you said that several times.
For sure.
And I disagreed with you on that, kind of, slowly. At first I would have agreed. Now I wouldn't, because you can fall into the trap of like, you have your first call. Yeah, we're looking to get quotes. Great. You get all excited. Here's what I need. Start gathering it. Send them their quote in the email, right? Or don't even propose. That should be on your checklist. You got to be able to propose in person. You got to talk in person. There can't be just flipping you information. Say, yeah, here's what else you need to quote. That type of situation, you can win some of those, but that's not very fruitful use of your time. Now, after quoting, the narrative to me is the proposals, that whole element, and controlling. Again, I would say the part you want to control is, will I be able to meet with the decision maker? I want to be able to present in person. If they live remotely close, those are your two big things you want to control. There's some argument over first look, last look. I like personally, and it's probably not popular, to be first, because I think I can go out there and set the bar so high and just outer to come out and boom, like give them something to think about. But then I know there's people that are hardcore, like, nope, be last. It's the best, increases your odds of winning, all that other stuff. But yeah, that's where I would go with that.
The last thing we wrote down here is that quoting can be part of like relationship building, like a long-term relationship. And so like, here's a perfect example. I'm working on a tow account right now. This is the 3rd year I've worked on it.
Okay.
And now I haven't gotten it yet, but like, I know the lady, my name is saved in her phone. Like her name is saved in my phone. Agent dropped the ball this year, messed up on a few things, and they are not a tow agent, so they don't have all the access. But they have been basically have held on to the account because they had the hot market with the Progressive, right? So it's like, for me, it's just a matter of time. And this quoting process and going through the subs every year have built a relationship. Now, we would have both absolutely poo-pooed this 3 years ago, but what are your thoughts on the quoting process having value as far as building relationships?
Yeah, I agree. You have to be careful because you can fall into the quoting trap, and every year they know they can call you every 2 years, right? You're the guy that they get the alternative quote from just to keep their guy honest, and nothing changes. There was when I worked at Federated, they had statistics on this, like when you win deals, right? And it was like your first year we had a quote there. We were a direct writer. So year one, the percentage was like 18%. Then year two, quoting the same account, it went up to like 22%. And then year three was like 27%. And then it drops off after the third time quoting.
Really?
Yeah. And they had national numbers on this for decades, right? So the data, it was pretty clear that, like, to your point, you do build a relationship. And sometimes that's just how some people operate, right? They're like, I got to get to know this guy. I would argue you can do the same thing by doing a due diligence process. If you truly follow all the steps and you actually come out there and give a really good presentation. I mean, like I've said before, I've got people sending me bottles of wine after doing due diligence, right? So it's like, that's pretty memorable, pretty valuable. And I feel like people do remember me after doing that. So I would argue you don't need to quote. Now, if you don't have the market and you have to, that's one thing.
Now, I'm not saying the quoting year after year without due diligence. That's not what I'm saying. Due diligence is always the tip of the spear. I'm just saying, because of due diligence, I know that this is worth me quoting because this guy literally only has Progressive. Meanwhile, I have the 2 or 3 other host-specific carriers. Yeah. So I just want to qualify. I'm not saying you just quote with no due diligence.
Yeah. And now, so if this is your third time quoting, I would probably, if you don't get it this time, I would probably just be like, hey, at the end of it, just be candid with her. Be like, hey, this is 3 years in a row. Or if you can do it after this time, if you don't get it, or next year, if she calls you back, or the year after, be like, yeah, Donna, just to be candid, like, this is our 3 years we've quoted. What's going to take to win your business, or why do you keep getting quotes? There's something else. Like, I can take over the Progressive policy, or is it just purely like you just feel like it's just something in you, and that's okay if it is, that you need to get another option to feel peace. Like, but if that's the case, I'll probably respectfully this will be my last year. So yeah.
No, in the towing thing's a little bit different. I'm firmly in the vendor trap. Like I am nothing but a conduit to a market. I'm totally aware of that. In the construction space, if I'm chasing something there, I'm definitely not playing this game. So just want to qualify that.
Yeah. And I found one other thing is when you do due diligence, usually I'm not doing it 2-3 years in a row. It might be once every 3 years, right? Because now the client, if you've done it right, they feel pretty good. And let's say they stay put and they're like, I'm not really chasing them next year. Now I will follow up with that same prospect and be like, if I didn't get it, just be like, hey, how's the things going with your broker, right? Just staying in touch, but that's it. It's not, I'm not going to be doing due diligence 3 years in a row on an account typically. But your point is so different because that is different. That's like kind of Federated, right? Where I had to quote, or like the towing world's very different. So a little bit unique there.
All right. You call in somewhere, you get a meeting, or you get referred in somewhere, whatever your modus operandi is, or you create the most just amazing webinar and you internet market them into your funnel, your 3-step funnel conversion system that apparently is all you have to do these days. Anyways, you get in the door and you go through your due diligence process. And at the back of the due diligence process, you realize that they're just not ready to jump off the cliff with you. But you have uncovered that they have not marketed it well and that you have opportunities there. There's also some pain, okay? And so you decide that you are going to quote. What does that presentation look like when you're not presenting, here's the deficiencies, hire me if you want, and you're presenting a proposal to specific market or markets? What's
There is no difference, at least the way I've done it. So I still do my due diligence, and through that process, like you said, I know okay, so is the question I have to quote, or I just decided I'm going to quote before I present the due diligence?
That's actually a great question. So let's make an assumption here. You've come back, you've given your due diligence presentation, and they say, Micah, I think I'd like for you to quote. I just don't think I can sign anything right now. Okay.
Okay.
Now you're going through the quoting process. What are you doing in the proposal of the actual quote? Are you doing anything, or is there like any qualifiers? Are you like positioning? Like how are you doing that?
Not really, because I've done most of that through the due diligence and the final talk there. Because at that point, when they just can't fire their guy and they say, and if you want to quote, you can, but I just can't move. Sorry. I'll be like, all right. I don't typically quote, however, through my process, I saw there was 2 or 3 markets there's 2 or 3 markets that I know would be the best for an agent to go to. That'd be the best for your account. I'll be willing to do that if I can have access to those 2 or 3. These are the ones they are. Your agent might push back, and if you don't want to give me these, I get it. I'm trying to be upfront and transparent with you. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to be fighting and quote, fighting over markets. But these are the 3 I want. Think about it. And if you want to move forward, great. Right. So then when I come back and present, though, it's just like when you present any quote, right? I go through the details of the coverage, the premiums. I also do a 1-pager, typically side by side, where I compare premiums, rates, and then some coverage differences on a page, because sometimes going through a whole document can be kind of cumbersome. That's to answer your. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what I do.
It does. I'm looking at something here. I found the thing we wrote in 2023 called the quoting filter. And it's basically 2 layers. So the first layer is, can you get policies? Like you have to get these 4 things. You have to check these 4 boxes. Okay. Can you get policies with the premiums, not whited out? Permission